Welcome to the Revenue Builders Podcast, a weekly show featuring B2B sales leaders and executives. Hosted by five-time CRO John McMahon and Force Management co-founder John Kaplan, the show goes behind the scenes with the people who have been there, done that, and seen the results. If you enjoy our content, please subscribe, rate, and review the show to help us reach more people. Revenue Builders is brought to you by Force Management. We help companies improve sales performance, executing the growth strategy at the point of sale. Find us at forcemanagement.com. Enjoy today's episode.
So, Tommy, we've been trying to get you on the podcast for a long time, and we both got tongue in cheek on there. We're not going to call this a redo, but we're so glad to have you. And
I took it personally because I thought the first one was really bad.
No. For our listeners out there, in all practical purposes, what the best way to describe it, Johnny? That I forgot to push record. Is that safe? Is that safe way to say it?
That's safe.
But we enjoyed the conversation, and we said let's just run it back to do a redo easily. But buddy, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
We've been trying to get you on the pod for a long time, so thanks for coming.
My pleasure. Yeah, it's great to be here with you guys. A lot of fun.
Yeah. So when we've talked to you in the past before, and you and I have had conversations in your career, what I love about your career is like the BDR to CEO horizon has just given you. I know you're on boards and you've had just, great success over your career, but talk a little bit about, as our audience is, set the theme a little bit, is, that track record and that perspective of you've been in all those seats that basically have every, possible seat an audience member could be sitting in. You've sat in those seats.
Sure. Yeah, I'm happy to talk about that. And I think the first thing, Cap, that pops to mind is just like you constantly have to reinvent yourself. You constantly have to grow. You constantly have to change. You go along the way, and it's just like, the old saying, what got you here is not going to get you where you want to go. And so that's, I think, the first thing that pops to mind. But before we jump into that, I just like to say thank you to both of you guys for your help with me personally and professionally. Both of my boys are tech sales guys. And they're doing great. What's that?
They're beasts.
Beasts.
Yeah.
And Matt and Cam. Matt's 32, Cam's 28, and both recently married. And they're both force management trained. Cam is like a zealot, so it's great to have you influencing my family personally. Also, what you guys also did in terms of really developing like the next generation of tech sales leaders. Some of the best sales leaders I've ever worked with, you guys helped develop, and Mark Thurman and I worked together 2 different times, 5 years, and he came out of PTC and, but I can go on and on and on, a whole bunch of people that I've worked with. And then actually for my business, the third dimension of it is like really helping with the command of the message. The first time Cap and I got to know each other, I think it was 2008.
Yeah.
2009, maybe 8 or 9 at RSA, when I was COO at RSA, and brought in Thurman. Had asked to bring you guys in, and I said I didn't know anything about you, and brought you in, and I saw the immediate effect of what command of the message was, but through the distillation of everybody saying, "Hey, here's what I say, this is what," and you just distill it and then fan it back out to the team. So all 3 of those, you guys have had a big impact on me personally and professionally. So I really appreciate that. So thank you.
Well, right back at you, buddy. I remember the Thurman one I remember him calling us and saying, "Hey, bud, Tom Heiser, my boss, just said, nobody's heard of you guys. And if you're willing to bet your job on on your buddies from PTC, then go ahead, go have at it." But if you hadn't, it was a huge launching point for us. The RSA engagement led us just to so many different avenues. So right back at you. Thank you.
Yeah, it had a big impact on our business for sure. So going back to the first point, BDR to CEO, or now chair, board chair on 2 companies. I just took on another board seat, which is my first non-tech, which I'm really excited about as well. But, back in the old days, I was the first sales training class at EMC Corporation, the data storage company, and first sales training class in 1984. Took a week off after I graduated college. They didn't call us BDRs back then. My business card said, Thomas Heiser, telemarketer. How degrading is that? Like, I literally had business cards that said telemarketer on them. Don't you think you're going to spice that up a little bit? Like, talk about marketing. That was awful. So anyway, I had no idea what my career was. I remember, in my probably mid to late 20s, my boss at that time, Frank Keeney, said, "Oh, you'll be a GM someday." I didn't even know what a GM was. And but look, it is so many different variables. Clearly, I have a lot of energy and was ambitious and relentless and tenacious and such. So, but there's just so many. Like, who would have thought EMC would have gone from, I was a 45th employee who left, there was 68,000. Who would have thought that? Nobody. Oh. So, so super fortunate to have worked with massively talented people that I worked for, I worked with, worked in my team. So just super fortunate. And it just kind of, just one thing kind of led to the other. And then I started having a vision. It's like, yeah, maybe I'd like to run a full business end to end. I had the curiosity to do that, to expand beyond my comfort zone and to spend time on things that I really wasn't comfortable with, whether it was customer success or engineering. Or with the MIT, I took a course. It was called Leading Technical People from non-technical people leading technical people, something like that, right?
What were the tenets? Do you remember some of the tenets
of that?
Yeah.
I didn't think it was a very good class. I don't Sorry,
or just told you get out of the way and let the technical people do what they do.
No, but that's funny. You should bring up the tenets because I have this list of tenets that I created 21 years ago. I presented to EMC. EMC asked me to present to their hypos, the high potentials, through the next generation leaders. And they said, would you go to Babson College? We had this executive education thing. And they said, would you present to the next stage of leaders? And I said, I'd be happy to. I said, what would you like me to present? They go, whatever you want to present. So I had no idea what to present. So I just started writing down things that I had learned, largely from people like my mentors and bosses and, those types of people. I just started writing down things like that. And maybe some things that I thought I taught myself, perhaps, or I'd learned through the experience and the battle scars and such. So I just started writing them down. So I do call them my management tenets. And I'm going to share some of those today with you. And I think these are, I don't use these to say, do this to anybody. I say these are what I believe are some of the core tenets that I have managed my career by. And maybe if you pick up one or two, great. And if not, that's fine also. But these are really foundational to me. And if I learned it from somebody that I know, I will give them credit. So,
and let's dive into them.
All right.
Which ones do you want to start with? Give us the first one you like.
Well, he started with one right off the bat where he said you have to constantly reinvent yourself.
Yeah, let's
you
go.
have to change, you have to challenge. But that's the first words out of his mouth. So that has to be one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is. It's like I'm looking for life learners. When I'm interviewing somebody or talking to them, is like, how curious are they? Do they want to try to change? And the first time we did this, we talked a lot about transformation, and we could talk about that also. But like, are you finding people that want to drive that change? Are you willing to do it personally and with your career? And I think that's a big part of it is wanting to do that.
It's challenge yourself, though. You have to want to challenge yourself. Like I used to sit in some positions and say to myself, wow, this is a big step up for me. But if I don't step up to it, they'll find somebody that will. So, that's how I kind of busted a lot of times through my fears was if I don't do it, they'll find somebody else that'll do it. So I got to do it. Got to find a way.
That's great.
Well, we always talk about that relationship between coachability and adaptability. And that's such a great topic nowadays because I think the world and technology and the business environment just changes so quickly that coachability means that I'm willing, open to feedback. I can take new concepts. I can learn new concepts. Adaptability for me is a little bit more what you're talking about, Johnny, and what Tommy that you're alluding to is the mindset of, going forward, even if I'm a little hesitant, but because that's what you do. It's like the men and women of the 101st Airborne, they say, when you ask them about jumping out of planes, they go, hey, everybody's afraid to jump out of the airplane for a first time, but like the men and women of the 101st Airborne, they jump anyways. And I've never forgotten that. It's kind of like a definition of courage, adding courage and momentum to coachability, because there's a lot of people that are coachable, but they don't adapt because they don't put themselves out there.
They don't change.
And they don't put themselves in an environment that requires change.
Are you willing to take risks?
Yeah.
I think it's a key element. Are you willing to take risks? Right? Once again, personally, professionally, work, and you look for people that are, that people have the vision that say, hey, this is where we need to go.
How do you coach people on that?
We all grew up in companies that were growing 100% a year or more, and you were just faced with everyone was faced with the reality of this is a different company this year than it was last year. And you need different knowledge, different skills. You're going to have to adapt. If you don't, you're going out the back door.
And people have different stages. Like, when you're recruiting, I'm looking for a $10 to a $50 million person, or I'm looking for a $50 to $250 million or whatever, $1 billion. It's like, but some people look at Zuckerberg, like the guy scaled, you have people like Larry Ellison. You have these people that can obviously Musk, you have these people that can just continue to scale beyond the realm of, comprehension. Is like, they just continue to take it from this tiny little thing and just scale. So, it's like, yeah, some people are these like early stage people or growth stage people or whatever it happens to be.
What advice do you guys give on this risk taking, to an individual? Because a lot of times people, like if you work for a great leader, and they believe in you more than you believe in yourself. And so it's less risky because that person kind of makes it seem less risky. There's a lot of variables involved there. What advice do you guys have for that?
One of the things I had a great mentor. Bill Truber was the CFO at EMC, then vice chair. And he and I were very different. He was CFO, so he was very financially, aware and such. And he would challenge me constantly on that, Cap. He would say, what are you thinking about? Like he would literally say, usually had an F-bomb in there, but he's like, what are you thinking about? And I tell him, and then sometimes you're like, okay, that makes sense. Other times it doesn't make sense. And so, I think I had a natural tendency to do that. I think we were groomed that way at our company early on of risk taking. And I think that's part of, we talk a little bit about this transformation and vision, people that have that. I've never considered myself really a visionary, but I can work with the team and figure out where do we want to go. And usually I have people on that team that have stronger skills in that than I do, certainly from a technology standpoint. And then you have the people that maybe they don't have that vision but they are embracing that change, that transformation. Right. And I think John McMahon and I had a little disagreement last time. And then I think the third category is if you're not driving the change or embracing the change, you're resisting change. I think there's three categories. John, I think you had a fourth category in there too.
I can't remember now.
Okay. I think you said that you're from Missouri, so show me. There's another category is they're on the fence.
Well, you guys were talking about coming in and embracing, you were going into new organizations and immediately you could spot those people that were going to come along.
Yes.
And come along.
Oh yeah.
Remind
us. I said there were three types, Tom. I said there's the people that no matter what you say or do as the new leader, they like the old way and they're not going to listen. They're not going to change. And then there's another group of people on the front end that are dying for new leadership and they're sponges and they want to change and they want to adapt. So they want to conform to whatever your vision. And then there's a group in the middle. It's kind of looking both ways. Like, how's this thing going to go?
Yeah.
And as a leader, you only have so much time to develop some wins with that first group,
right?
To get the people in the middle to pull over, because the people on the other side, the naysayers, they're talking to the people in the middle and trying to poison them.
Yeah.
So as a leader, you've got a lot. You don't have much time to go get some wins.
And it's important to cut that poison out fast.
Totally. Yes.
Right. And some people are very overt about that, and others are not. Some of them are doing it subconsciously. Some of them are doing it consciously. But it's really, really, really important that you can't have that kind of resistance. You have to get rid of that.
Yes.
And I think we're also talking about here on the personal side, that's as a leader coming in and assessing where people are. But the people that are getting assessed, like, I find that people who constantly try to see themselves in the future, and I'm not talking about missing the present. I'm not talking about living in the future or living in the past. I'm not talking about that. But when you have your eye on, you can see yourself in the future, you're willing to take more risk to get there. When you don't feel like you own your future, like when you don't put yourself in that position to look at yourself in the future, you're less likely to take those risks. And I find that for the people listening, you're always responsible for your own future. Company,
yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Tap you on the shoulder.
Yes,
when I was younger, I said, hey, they'll come get me. They'll tap me on the shoulder. Not the flip side, but in conjunction with that was, if I'm doing things that are standing out. And, Johnny gave me some great advice, Tom, back in the day when he said, hey, you ready for the next job? I was talking about, I want to do this. And he goes, John's advice to me was, act like you already have the job. And that's some of the best advice I ever got about. So I had to think about myself of what would I look like in the future of that role, and how could I start doing that now? So I'm just trying to give a little bit of ownership to the listener.
Maybe I learned that from John McMahon, but I have a mentee of mine. I said, put yourself in your 2 steps ahead, your CEO's seat. Look at things, try to solve his problems. And then it gives you, this is like opening your aperture, right? Open the aperture for context. This is another one of the tenets. And I learned it from a woman that worked at my team at RSA. She ran a big chunk of development. She was from India, and she had great ability to open up her eyes for context. She understood that. She also stood what her team did and how they contributed broadly. But she also had that ability to then zoom in and focus and execute. And, you see some people have those blinders on that they're just like doing what that narrow perspective is, or scope of what their role is. You also see people that kind of just float all over the place and never get the ability to, they see perhaps see the big picture, but they can't narrow it down to understand what they're doing and how they're impacting that, right? So it's like open the aperture for context and focus for execution.
I think you also need a leader like Tom had with, I think you mentioned Tom Huber. Was that his name?
Bill Tuber, yeah.
Bill Tuber, I'm sorry. I think everyone needs someone like that sees their potential more than you actually see yourself. So I don't know how many times I had to pull certain people over to the side. Yeah, you need time. Put them in a room. You got an hour. They got an hour. And you tell them, like, you've been at this level for the last year. I see you up here. The organization needs you up here. And everybody else sees that you can get there. But for some reason, you're stagnant. And you start asking why. Is it a personal issue? Are you stale? Are you happy? You try to figure out if there's something going on the personal side. If there's not, you step in and say, here's what I need you to do, and I'll work with you to get you to that next level. And when you do get them to that next level, they're not leaving you. They're not going anywhere.
I'm smiling because you hit something. My first external coach, John, her name is Ginny Whitelaw. You can Google her. She literally is a rocket scientist. She was retired at NASA Space Station. And when she retired, she became a coach, and she runs this like Zen Institute on Leadership. Now you can find her, Ginny Whitelaw. And she was my personal coach in my 30s. That's a long time ago. And she worked with me for a while. And obviously EMC had, given her some, I don't know if we did a 360 or whatever, but given her context. And she goes, you've done a great job with your career. And this is as far as you're going. So what do I say? Bull. And she goes, that's fine. She goes, you got a great career. Keep doing it. And, but she goes, you're not going any further. And so I resisted for quite a while. And then I tried to embrace this. What her whole thing was, she goes, you're a hammer. Everything looks like a nail. I was pushing, push. And she was trying to teach me the art of pulling, which for me is much harder. It takes a little bit more time. I'm better at it than I was, but I'm certainly not great at it. But she opened up my eyes to that. And then when I started trying to embrace that with my team and pull them along instead of telling them what to do, when I told them what to do, I owned it. When they got there, they owned it.
I love that.
It was a force multiplier. And so Ginny did exactly what you're talking about, John. She opened that up, and it was like she helped me see that I had blinders. I didn't see. This is the paradox. Hopefully you can't hear my dog barking in the background right now. She's half Great Pyrenees, so she's super loud. I don't know where I was going with that, but
paradox.
Oh yeah, paradox. Thanks. Is like on sorry, both of my dogs are going crazy here.
We actually cannot hear them for some reason. We don't.
On the self-awareness, is, one of my things is like the research shows that the best executives have the highest self-awareness. But the paradox of the self-awareness is you need others to help you with that.
Yeah.
And you can't, I wasn't self-aware to see that. And I could share a couple of other examples of that also, is the self-awareness. So you need others to help you. And whenever I've heard anybody
definition, right? By the very definition, self-awareness is you see yourself as others see you.
Yeah.
And so you got to have the others in there. And if you don't get the others' feedback, it's a moot point. But this is related to the coachability and adaptability piece. Like, okay, so let's stay on that story. Coachability says she told you, and I'm not sure that and I know you didn't say bull, but I'm not sure that response was the coachable part, but you obviously adapted in some way and you took the coaching. What do you do with that? Like, do you remember that as being a milestone? What was the adaptability part?
She was actually trying to get me to take, and I didn't do it, but the concept was Aikido lessons, was trying to take Aikido. It was like the art of pulling your adversary's energy and using it, right? You pull instead of push against them type of thing. So just from a conceptual standpoint, I remember trying that with, an adversary of mine at EMC. And first time I did it figuratively, he was on the other side of the room. And I go, and he's like, how did I get over here figuratively? And I'm going, oh my God, because I didn't push the person. I didn't go to my typical tactical approach.
Man,
the individual.
Talked about this before, and you and I are very, very similar. And my analogy for that is like the Native Americans have this way that they wrestle, where you put one foot out in front of the other, one foot out, and the other person puts the foot out and matches. And then you grab hands and you push and you pull and you push. And inevitably, the person that wins that wrestling is the person that just allows the other person you kind of fall backward a little bit and the person falls forward. That's actually an analogy that was given to me, Tom, now you can see I probably didn't adapt too well to it, but I was given the same feedback, is that in business, if you can hang back a little bit, people will fall forward towards you versus aggressively pursuing them. Yeah. So I think that's awesome.
I think there's a second part of the self-awareness, though. You have the self-awareness where you actually know, like, your flaws, your strengths, your weaknesses. But then you have different people that we deal with, right? So we deal with like analytical people and drivers that, like Tom used to be, just like, give me my answer, and expressives and amiables who are always scared of everything. They're willing to run away at any moment's notice. So then what I found is you also have to understand, okay, this is who I am, but how do I reach out to these other people that are kind of stuck in their own mode? And how do I get the best out of them by giving them what they want in order to get them to see what I want? That's kind of a big challenge for a lot of people, to understand like their what they call like their social style and the effect, the rubber band effect to the other person.
Reminds me, I don't know if you guys read the book, The Love Languages, right? Everybody thinks that their love language is what their partner's love language should be, but it's not. It's like, what is your partner's love language?
Right.
Well, time, whatever.
Well, I've always said that it's especially in communication, it's the responsibility of the leader to adjust or adapt a communication style to meet their employee or the one that they're leading wherever they are. And that's hard for people. Like, that's really hard for people. Like, you're like, I've grown up through, organizations and cultural situations where they said, no, this is our culture. This is the way it is. It's our way or the highway. And we're going to, people are just going to follow us. If they don't want to follow us, they're going to, go somewhere else. And I think we'd all admit that most of the cultures today are, and generations today are more about the attraction to a leader that has the ability to meet them wherever they are, not compromise on any of their morals or any of their beliefs, but at least communicate in a way that meets me wherever I am. And that's not so easy for the baby boomers.
No, but I think all three of us came through sales, and perhaps, we were trained in that regard, is trying to learn, trying to listen to our prospects and our customers, right? And trying to understand where they're coming from. Epiphany when I was in my 20s and sales became fun was when I put myself on the other side of the table and try to look at the opportunities through my customer's eyes, or my prospect's eyes. And once you start solving the problem for them, then they realize that you're on their side, right? I think it's the same thing as trying to understand that, looking at it through their eyes and trying to cater to that. So maybe we were fortunate in that regard from having a sales background.
Right. I love that.
I think that's a great point. Like, but even still, like, you'll have people that are sales leaders and they know that they need to have an outside-in approach with their customers, and they take an inside-out approach in their leadership style, which is fascinating sometimes. All right, what other?
Let me just tie off on that self-awareness one also. And so the research shows that, executives that have true high self-awareness are some of the best sales executives. The number one derailer research shows is overplayed strength. So I'm a hammer, right? I'm strategic. I spend all my time on strategy. I'm a CEO and I'm a salesperson, so all I want to do is visit with customers, right? So it's watching that. I'm working with a mentee of mine right now on his, and he's just super open, really talented guy, and just got a big job. And and he asked me, and he called me up and he goes, "Hey, I know that I can do this and this and this, but this is where I need it." So he does actually have quite good self-awareness, is trying to bring him along on that, so he doesn't spend all of his time on, and he's very strategic on that side of things. And so that's the other side of it, is like trying to make sure that, you don't over-rotate.
Give us an example.
Somebody that you're not. Is your point? I think your point is try not to be somebody that you're not either. You need to change and adapt, but you don't want to try to be somebody that you're not. You got to. You still have to be yourself and be authentic.
100%.
Yeah.
And surround yourself with top talent, right? Totally. Put people around. I'm talking to a former CTO of mine, from 20 years ago. Later today, we might be doing something together, and this guy is, huge brain, great communicator. And I was just so fortunate to have worked with him, and he had a big impact on our team. His name is Mike Killian, and just like mega talent. And I couldn't even come close to what he was doing. Right. So you have to surround yourself.
This last point on self-awareness, or my last point on self-awareness, is there's a huge relationship to just in life, people that have reconciled their own stories They know how they were raised. They know, I'm not saying there's a hero. I'm not saying there's a victim. It's just a story. Your life is a story, and you're presented with certain opportunities and certain challenges. I find a big part of self-awareness is, and the way that it comes out, is that we are all kind of product of our experiences. And when you do a self-reflection of, reconciling your story, I know I am the way I am for certain reasons. There's no excuses. It's just, I know that I react a certain way, or that I look for things a certain way, or that I'm more discerning here or more risk averse there. And I think the people that are just more aware of their stories, I think number one, they just have better lives. And number two, I think they're way better leaders because they know how to help other people connect with their stories. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah, I think so. It's like, I'll give you an example on that. One of my tenets, Cap, is express passion, look for passion. I don't care what you do. I just want you to feel passionate about what you're doing, about what your job is. And if you can't, let's go see if we can find one here. And if not, go find something that you're passionate about. So that's a strength. I think it's a strength of mine. I over-rotate what is passion taken to an extreme, emotion.
100%.
Right. And it's an overplayed strength is emotion. And I was very rude to Joe Tucci once, CEO of EMC. I was disrespectful to him. And when I apologized to him and I said, Joe, my strength is my passion. And I said, sometimes it gets, out of control and it flips to emotion. And I said, and I apologized. I said, I was rude and emotional. And you know what he said? Classy guy, great leader. Don't lose the passion.
Yeah.
Right. I love it.
The other thing,
that's all he said to me. Just don't lose the passion.
The other thing that passionate people are vulnerable to, because I'm in the same category.
Yes, you are.
We are. I'm off balance around people that do not show passion. Doesn't mean they're not passionate, but that do not show passion in the same way that I do. I'm off balance around people like that. And I've actually had to be coached and corrected. I've had people say to me, hey, just because I'm not slamming my fist on the table like you are, do not confuse that with me not being passionate about what we're talking about. So I had to learn that. It's a mindset. It's not an emotion, I think is what you're saying, Tommy.
Yeah.
It is a mindset. I like to call it emotional proprioception. You guys are like, what's he talking about? So,
you're going to play like
proprioception is like when a runner runs through the woods and he's got such a he's been so much experience, has very sensitive feedback system. He knows how to touch the rocks and the roots and the gravel and the mud and the water and the sand, and how much emphasis he can put on it, when he's got to let go, and how much force he can put on things. I've always loved that analogy for when I'm dealing with people and I'm having a conversation. I'm constantly sensing, like, how hard can I touch this, and how long can I leave it on this subject, before I got to change and move. That thing's really kind of served me well. But I think it's being aware of it when you're having a conversation with people and kind of sensing your feedback constantly. Like, how is this thing going?
The only way that you can do that, we've talked about this a lot, Johnny, and I know you have a real keen awareness of this, but you have to be, I think when you're comfortable with your self-awareness, you already know what you're representing. You have a better chance to be more present in a conversation. You're not trying to be something you're not. You're not trying to say something that you think has to be, we heard it one time on a podcast, Johnny, it says, focus on being interested more than focus on being interesting. Mm-hmm. And I think that people that have the ability to do that are more present. Great leaders, the best leaders I've ever met are the ones that they're right there with you. You're really good. Both of you guys are really good because you're good listeners. And it's because you're being present. You're like, you know your story. So you're ready to be audible ready with your story. And you're going to adjust your story to whatever comes up in the conversation. That's sometimes people are unconsciously competent, which is a good way. But when they're incompetent on that, it's really frustrating to be in conversations with people like that, because they're not, they're not present. They're just waiting for you to finish and for you to start something else. So we dove into self-awareness pretty well. Tommy, anything else on that?
I don't think there's anything else on self-awareness here's one. So another coach that I had, Dr. Eddie Erlandson, he was retired Cleveland Clinic vascular surgeon. He worked with my team, and they wanted me to be more vulnerable. Well, you're laughing because it took me years to figure out what he's talking about.
How long ago was this?
20.
Okay, this is going to be a good
2013.
Oh, 2013. I thought, okay. All right, go ahead.
Yeah. So it's like, I didn't really know what he was talking about. and I get it. It's like trying to be more open. It's like, I think I know now. It's just like, instead of just saying, hey, here's where we're going and this is what we're going to do. And, that kind of thing is like, hey, not everything is rosy here. It's just like, hey, let's open it up and be honest with where I am and where things are. And, instead of just painting that rosy picture all the time and just allowing myself to be exposed on that. So
all it talks about authenticity, vulnerability, and authenticity. Those kind of go, those are related, especially from leadership. Those are two of the main qualities that today's workers are putting at the top of the list for what they look for in a leader is vulnerability and authenticity. And I think they're related. If you're authentic, you know your story, you're self-aware. And vulnerability is just kind of, staying in the realm of, who you are and you are what you are and you are what you say. I think it's really, really important. I had this debate, but they're not.
I had this debate. I guest lecture at Boston College and Babson College. I had this debate with like the students who we were talking about that authentic. It was a course on leadership at BC at Carroll School MBA, and it's like, to me, being authentic is kind of jacks to enter. What's the alternative to being authentic? Not authentic?
Yeah.
Right.
That to me is like, then now you're dishonest. Whether you're dishonest with your team, with yourself, whatever. It's like, to me, it's like, you've got to be authentic. It's like, it almost doesn't compute with me to think about not being authentic.
Well, you say that, and the reason why is because that's the way you operate. But all the data says that there is less trust today in leadership than there's ever been in the history of a workforce. And so that's where that comes from. That's really what they're saying is it's a lack of trust in the leader because they don't believe that they're, truthful and authenticity and, telling it like it is. They don't believe it. So authenticity is easy because you're like, well, what's the alternative? Not tell the truth? You don't even contemplate that way. But for leaders listening, it's still a very big topic of conversation for the people that you are leading, because there is we talk about a seller deficit disorder. Like when you show up to a customer, they're like, they don't believe that you understand their business and they don't believe that you listen. So you have to overcome that. What leaders, there's an authenticity issue that, you have to prove that, you say what you mean and you're going to do what you say. It's like, those aren't, we say it's table stakes, but you'd be surprised. It's not as common as you would need it to be today.
Yeah.
What else we got?
I'd like to talk a couple minutes on empowerment.
Please.
To me, personally, I think empowerment is the single most important element of leadership, I think. And even as board chair or whatever, if I feel empowered, you're going to get my best work. Damn, I'm going to do that. If I feel like I own this, I can get this done. Like it's part of my responsibility. You're going to get my best work. And if I don't feel empowered, it's like, why am I doing this? And so what I tried to do, I don't know, maybe mid-stage through my career, was trying to make sure that my team felt empowered, that they understood what they were responsible for, and then I mentioned it briefly, I don't know, 20 minutes ago. It was like, if they felt that way, then I know I was going to get the best work from them. And so to me, that's like
a little bit more, Tommy. What does it mean to you to empower somebody or an organization? What does it mean?
To get them to feel that they own whatever it happens to be from end to end. Like this is part of it, and that dovetails with people on both sides of that. There's a book, I don't know if you guys have read Turn the Ship Around. It's got to be 25 years old.
Tell me about that. Yeah.
It's a great story. It's nonfiction. It's written by a U.S. naval captain who ran a fast attack sub out of Hawaii. And he talked about, he took over the worst performing fast attack. Now this thing's carrying nukes, right? And it's run by a nuke, and it's, worst performing sub in the fleet. And nobody felt empowered. His team didn't feel empowered. They didn't feel, and all the decisions prior were made by the captain.
And does that mean like, no matter what we do, it doesn't matter? Exactly. Is that like lack of empowerment means that? Okay.
Yeah. And then the captain made all the decisions. So everything rolled up, right? And people didn't feel that they could make decisions. Now, so it took a long time. So one of the things he used this method, and I loved it. He did, because captain reports to admiral. His admiral, he would say to his admiral, I'm intending to do this. The key word is intending. I use this all the time now. I use it with the board. I try to get my team to do it with me. I just used this just yesterday, and with a mentee of mine. And it's like, just go into, he reports to the CEO of a big cyber company. It's like, go in and say, this is what you're intending to do. Don't say, what do you think? Which is wishy-washy. And now if the CEO tells you what to think, you better do it, because now you just open it up. And now if you don't do what he said, now you could be in a bad situation. Or you say, I'm going to do this, is too definitive perhaps. But I loved how the captain of that ship said, I intended to do this. I intend to do blank, whatever it happens to be. And then it took him a while to get his team commanders to do that with him, to get them to feel that they own things. And they would tell him, I'm intending to do that. It's such a simple phrase, but like, I use it personally all of the time, out of respect for the PEs, private equity firms, sponsors and such. It's like, I'm intending to do this. And hopefully now it's natural, it's a natural thing to say. So I think that was a great tactic that captain used to help his team feel empowered. Because when he used it with the admiral, he felt empowered to make those decisions. And it just gives just enough to open it up to your boss to say, have you thought about this? Or what do you think about that? Right? It shows intention. It shows direction. It shows forethought, right? It shows a plan, but it also shows you're open-minded enough to receive input.
We had, maybe you know the guy, Tom, we had Mike Hayes on, who, when we had him on like a year and a half ago, was a COO at VMware. He was a commanding officer of SEAL Team 2. And he talked about how, one, he didn't corner all the knowledge on when they were running a mission. So he'd listen to anybody's input. Everybody's input was valuable. Number two, he had to understand the skill set of all his people, because he wasn't the best at everything that they had to do. So when they were maybe going into a place, he might have two guys in front of him that had certain skill set that they needed before he went in. Those types of things, which parallel exactly what you're talking about, where you have to work as a team. As the leader, you're just kind of part of the team, right? Yes. Everybody else has an input, and you have to revolve around the skill set of your team and your skill set.
Yes.
It was really amazing to listen to Mike talk about it.
Yeah. I don't know how far where delegation falls on that spectrum, but I remember Dick Egan, the E and EMC, the founder of EMC, unbelievable leader, just unbelievable. And he was a master delegator, but he also, when he delegated, you felt empowered. You felt like, you owned it. And I did. And I think it taught me about delegation and getting the team to embrace it as well. So I don't know if it's an element of it, but I think that was my first exposure to that.
Did you feel sometimes when you delegated, like he knew that it was going to also be a challenge for you and you'd have to step up for it? So you were, as you said, you were passionate about that?
He was always challenging us. Like nothing was easy. I mean, the bar was high with him. The bar was very high.
Let's give the flip side, which has driven me nuts before in my career, where somebody tells you you're empowered, but holds a pocket veto.
Ooh.
And, so you go and do something because you believe you're empowered and they already had the answer in the envelope. There's very few things that are less motivating than that as it relates to this empowerment.
I had a boss around 2000. He had a short stint at EMC and he staged a whole thing. He had everything planned out. And then he, brought a few of us in and I called him on it. And sometimes that's not a very good thing. And he goes, "You think this is a charade?" I go, "That's your word, but I know you already had this all planned out. I know you had the answer before you included us."
Yeah.
That's not authentic.
Yeah. I think
that leads to something that we talked about last time. It's you're either in a transactional environment where, you sell for me, and as long as you sell, I pay you and don't penalize you. That's very transactional. Tom, this whole podcast so far, you've been talking about transformational management where, like you just said, I think it was Dick Egan would give you guys things to do and you'd have to grow through that process. That was very transformational management, right? And he gave you full responsibility and he probably was going to hold you accountable to it, but it wasn't just a plain old transaction.
Well, he held us accountable.
Transaction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the other thing about this, I think great leadership inspects that. Mm-hmm. How many times have you been asked by a boss to go do something and they never ask you about it again? It's so demotivational.
Yeah.
Why was it really that important?
Yeah, right.
Whether it was, whether it's a formal sit down review, quarterly business review, whatever, weekly, whatever, dashboard, whatever, coffee station conversation, asking about it, whatever, doesn't matter. But he would inspect it, right? And then it kept you honest, but it was important. You knew it was important. If he was exerting the energy again to ask about that again, he was asking you to do something that was important.
Yes.
We're talking about some of the things here on empowerment. I want to go back to one of the things you said on intent. It actually came from the military. There's a term called commander's intent. And what they found was in business, and we actually hire for it at Force Management. And I was really blessed to understand what this meant. And I learned it from a military person that was on our staff. Commander's intent is the people have the ability to understand the commander's intent, and they can go and operate within the commander's intent. And the beauty for the leader is they come back with things that are even more powerful than you thought they could be when you allowed them to, for the empowerment. But there's also those people, sorry guys, there's also those people that don't operate very well in commander's intent. So the opposite of commander's intent is, hey, I went and did this. I went and unwrapped the candy wrapper. Here's what the candy looks like. And you go, okay, great. Like we got to make a whole box of those. Hey, I did 2. Here's what 2 of them look like. So the opposite of that they can't understand commander's intent is they have to constantly be supervised. And the reason why it's so powerful in the military is it started to differentiate what type of people that could go off and do certain missions. If people could work in the boundaries of intent and create great opportunities for everybody, successful opportunities, they put people in those types of environments with less boundaries. People that could not operate with commander's intent, they did a great job, but they had to be told step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. When I was first introduced to that concept, I thought, holy smokes, that sums up a lot of work experience that I've had with people on, like, why do I struggle to tell something to one person and they go and deliver something to me more powerful than I thought, and then other people, I feel like they have to keep coming back. So does that resonate for you guys, that term of commander's intent?
Absolutely. It's giving them the latitude, the creative ability, right?
That's from the leader's point of view. I love that. But also you have to be somebody that says, am I somebody that operates well with commander's intent? Like, can I take a concept? Can I take the intent? Do I know how to qualify the intent? Go out and deliver something that is, that is spectacular. Both of those worlds are really powerful, but not everybody. If you're self-aware, you probably know where you sit on that spectrum.
There's also the leaders who paralyze some of their people when they give them like 8 different ways in which they measure them. And then the people can't get out of bed in the morning. The alarm clock goes off. They wake up, they try to roll their legs over the side of the bed, and they think, oh, my manager manages me by 8 different measurements. Like, I just don't know exactly what he wants from me. I've seen that movie many times.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
I mean, Tommy, you're dealing with strategy. You're dealing with, you're chairman of the board. Johnny, you're on so many boards, and you're, 5-time CRO. How do you make sure you don't do that? Like, is there a framework that you use in this spirit of commander's intent? How do you know you're not giving people too little? How do you know you're giving them too much?
I try to involve them in that decision, right? So I learned this 20 some odd years ago. It's called LP, whatever that stands for, language processing, language, whatever. And it's a methodology of saying, where are we today? Where do we want to be in 3 years? What are the vital steps to get from where we are to where we want to be over a 3-year time horizon? What are the key initiatives we're working on this year? What are our OKRs? Everything's pointing in the same direction. And that's done collaboratively with the entire team. So it's not a tops down, this is what we're doing. It's where do we want to go? We actually discuss what our North Star is. We agree upon the North Star. Obviously, the CEO has final say on it, but usually it's a good discussion, and you involve the entire team to get there. Because if they're involved in the development of the strategy, once again, they're going to own it. If you're flipping it over the fence at them, then I own it. So I think that the best method to do that is
ownership comes with it. I think ownership comes with involvement is what you're saying. If you're not involved, you can't own it. Like, you have to be involved. And then once you own it, like, the flip side of this is you own it. Like, the accountability factor is when people sign up and say, hey, I want commander's intent, I want to own this. And then they got to own it. Like, there's a lot of loose language around that I see in companies today. I'll go in, I'll just say, who owns this? And people go like, nobody owns it. And it's just basic stuff. And I don't know where that comes from, but I think it's a little bit of a risk aversion on everybody's part on, if I say they own it, then I won't be able to have input. So, but I like what you just said. The involvement is, you'll get ownership when you get involvement.
One of the things, and then the EMC was tremendously successful through the 90s and beyond. In the 90s, our CEO was Mike Ruckers, and he used to always say to us, spend 10% of your time developing a strategy, spend 90% of your time flawlessly executing, right? And you can debate 10-90, whatever the ratio is. What he's telling us is you have to have a plan. And spend all of your time executing on that plan. Have a bias for action, right? One of the things that I learned from that is you learn to take risks, because if you're given the latitude to iterate off of that, then you can course correct, you learn, you grow, you iterate. I call it the rule. The one thing I learned from that is I call it the rule of 15 degrees. Here's our North Star. We're heading in that direction. We have to change a little bit, 15-degree alteration, right? Whatever it happens to be. And as we have more context, we can iterate on that, and we can point and we can course correct for what that direction should be. It's not a 90-degree turn. It's certainly not going back to where we came from, 180 degrees. It's this learn, put the stake in the ground, and iterate off of that with a bias for action off of having a plan.
What I love about that, it reminds me of Mike Tyson's quote. I love it. Everybody's got a plan until they get hit in the face. But what I mean by that is, what I've always loved about that is, you have a plan, but until you're in the ring swinging away, you're going to learn what needs to be adjusted. You can plan all you want, but you're going to get punched in the face. And I think that I love what you're saying is like you're learning. The plan is the planning. The learning is really in the execution, because that's putting the plan to test.
Right.
But you know what I'm talking about. You'll go into meetings with people or board meetings and they'll be like, yeah, our plan is this. And we're 4 quarters into it and it's not working. It's not working and we're getting hit in the face, but we're still holding on to the same plan. I think that's a little powerful statement you said there, Tom. I love it.
Yeah, and it depends upon how much you have to deviate from what the plan is. Did everybody agree upon where that was pointing to begin with? What have you learned so far?
Now, you guys are both. I remember the last time all three of us got together, you guys were really, you both really loved that Calvin Coolidge quote that I had written.
Oh,
is that?
I looked it up again earlier today. Yeah.
Love that. It's my favorite quote. I actually have it framed in my house.
I think, yeah, you guys both love this. So who wants to read it? Tommy, do you have it in front of you?
I got it if you want it.
Yeah, read it, Johnny, and then Tommy, comment on it, why it's one of your tenets.
Yeah. Nothing in the world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent.
Love the quote. It could have come from a better president, but
powerful.
What's it mean to you guys? It's a great quote. What's it mean to you guys? Tommy, you first, and then Johnny.
I've seen people who that aren't the most talented, but they're most persistent, succeed. It's just like never give up. You know, we used to have the Jeff Goldberg made these T-shirts for us in the 90s at EMC, and it was what's the difference between an EMC sales rep and a pit bull? The pit bull eventually gives up. And we had these pictures with a cartoon of a pit bull on it. That was the culture we were raised with, is just never giving up.
Yeah. That's the same for me. I mean, I've always thought, like, I'm not the most talented guy. I'm not the greatest speaker. I'm not going to charm you with my charisma. Any of those things I'm not the best at. But I always thought, like, when I was selling, I used to think, if you're going to beat me, you better get up really early and go to bed really late, because I am.
Well, Angela Duckworth, everybody talks about grit and everybody talks about, persistence, resilience. It's all formulated around this quote, if you will, the principles of it. And it's the people that can stay focused on a goal, no matter what the stuff is that comes up. And it's the stuff, for me, I think it's the stuff where resilience comes from. The grit, I think, is from being, hyper focused on an outcome, hyper focused on, finishing something. And then the resilience for me comes from the fun of, like, the stuff, because it's getting punched in the face. Resilience, I think, comes from getting punched in the face. Grit comes from, I want to win the boxing match, and I'm going to do everything that I can. And resilience really answers the question but can I get punched in the face and keep going?
It is focused, though. It is focused. Yeah.
I don't know if you're wrapping up right now, but one of the other ones is, like, one of my other tenets, and maybe it's a good place to wrap up, is Tough times are not fun, but look at them for the learning experiences that they offer. And I was presenting in New York City at one of my company's sales teams maybe 2 months ago. And I gave them an example of when I was the president of RSA, we got breached by the Chinese. It was bad. Front cover of the New York Times. I had the FBI, DHS, and NSA in my office at the same time. It wasn't good. But I will tell you though that I've never seen a team perform ever in my life like that. They all came together. We had an enemy. The people were empowered. The organization was completely flat, and it was hell. But like everything I reflect from on that was unbelievable. It's like it makes you appreciate the good times. So I use that example, and one of the sales guys says to me, "Can you give us an example of where it wasn't a situation, an adverse situation?" I told another story. And he goes, "That was another adverse situation." And I go, "Well, I guess that's where I learned things from."
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome, buddy. Well done. You're the man.
Thank you, guys. Great to see you.
Thank you, Tom Heiser. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks for everything you do out there, buddy. Keep it.
Thank you. You too.
Building the next generation of leaders, and we appreciate you. Well done.
All right. Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you, Tom Heiser. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. Be sure to check us out at forcemanagement.com.